may go a little slower today, may take a little more time today than normal, but I promise you that there's some really cool stuff I want to talk about today. So stick with me. We'll have a lot of fun. This will be good. We want to make this a very interactive webinar. I always like my webinars to be very interactive. We'll do my best to answer your questions, but let's take a look at some of the webinar basics as we get started. We're going to cover YOUZIGN. I need to change that from both. It's now YOUZIGN, GIFZIGN, LogoZIGN, and MOCKUPS. I'll cover all of those at some point, maybe not in detail in every webinar, but in many of them we'll at least address each of those platforms at some point, okay? Good morning, Mike from Victoria. Let's see. I did say good morning to Jay as well. All right, to Grady as well. All right, I can't answer your support questions here. You have to send them to support. Make sure that your questions are support related when you send them to support though, okay? Kim, that may be available today. You might try the link from last week. I know that there's a brief window that's open and you should have gotten an email to that effect. So if you have a chance, make sure that you do that. Maybe we'll do it very quickly because they opened it up for a limited number of spaces, okay? Your questions are important, but they need to relate to today's topic, particularly today. I'm not going to have as much latitude today as normal, simply because of the limited vocal ability that I'm going to have, okay? I don't have answers to the pricings, questions, deadlines, timelines, those kinds of things. So unless I've been given that information up front, I will not have those kinds of things available on the webinar. I don't talk about the partners offers. You may get an email from YOUZIGN inviting you to buy a partner's product, but we don't try to answer those questions in the webinar. And then we've provided you with a document, and I don't have the link to that this morning, but we've provided you with a document that has links and things that you might find helpful there. It is a Google Drive document, so you should be able to get access to that. And if somebody has that, would you please share that? I meant to copy that down, and I was a little bit distracted this morning trying to get ready for this webinar. So, question always comes up about replays. We're up to date. Last week's replay is up and it's in the replay section. And so that was January the 26th and that replay was available. So you'll be able to catch the replays there. Oftentimes this is what I do. I go back and I read the chat log and I listen to the webinar again. If there are recurring questions, I'll try to create an email, or I'll try to create a video and post it in the group to follow up to make sure. Thank you, Kim. I'll try to post that in the group and follow up, letting you know that this was a question that came up that somehow we missed or we weren't able to deal with, and so we'll fix that. And I did that last week, following up with MOCKUPS. Just a couple of things that I thought had gotten missed in that webinar, recurring questions. And so we addressed those recurring questions in a very brief 3-minute video, posted that in the group so that people would have access to that. Okay? Now, thank you guys. We have a great group here, which brings me to the next topic, and that is, I always like to give a little shout out to our community because we have amazing people in our community. Terry created this design within about 20 minutes of the time that she got access to MOCKUPS. She made it in YOUZIGN, imported it into MOCKUPS. That's a beautiful design. It's a great image. And so I always like to give a little shout out to people because we have a fascinating community of people who are always pushing out to the limits of the things that can be done. And so and I'm always encouraging you to do that. Instead of feeling frustrated by what you can't do, find out how much you can do and push as far as you can to get what you have available, okay? Always do that if you can. And so I try to give a shout out to people who are demonstrating that in the group. Next thing is, Dean, last week the question came up, well, it'd be great if they had transparent backgrounds. And so the obvious question is, well, just remove the background. And Dean created this image just within minutes of the time we got off the webinar. And I thought it was just a really, really good example of using the product to do the things that demonstrate your ability as a designer and push out the limits of the capabilities. So this is a great shot by Dean. Dean did a great job with this. And then Gene decided to follow that up with a video, and he took the mock-up design, removed the background, created a transparency out of it, and then played a video inside of here and a video in the background. Very, very cool idea. And all this was happening within minutes of the time that the product was available. This is pushing your limits. This is stretching your capabilities. This is mastering your tools. And those are the things that I'm always talking about in this webinar, doing my best to try to get you to understand that, hey, just master what you have. And it'll be amazing what you're able to do if you focus on the mastery rather than on the mechanics, okay? Little update from the community. This came up a lot immediately following the release on Friday, and that is people were saying, I can't open my design. And it was because you forgot to leave the .png when you renamed the file. Eventually that'll get taken care of, but in the meantime, remember to keep the .png when you're downloading the file. Okay, I mean that is just that's a common problem, particularly in our beta testing, and so just a reminder to you that you can do that. Does that make sense to everybody? Is that clear? Because I had a number of people and support got blown up with it, and so I created this and stuck this in the group so people would have that information. When you're in this process, make sure that you watch carefully what's going on in the group and read the other posts. And most of the things that people are asking about could simply be solved if you would use the community for what it's worth, and that is to go find out. Somebody else asked this question already, and can we fix this? Okay. Willie, when I get to the platform in a little bit, I'll show you where the replays are at, but the replays are stored on the support page, and I'll show you where to find that. It's better to show you where to find it than it is to give you a link. Okay? Give you a link, I'll have to give you a link next week, and then I'll have to give you one the next week. If I show you where to find it, you'll have it forever. That's always been my philosophy, and so we'll work to help you to understand that, okay? Yes, John is a good example of that. He's able to solve the download new templates in MOCKUPS by visiting the group. Yes, that question had been answered at length. And after having answered it at great length numerous times, people say, well, I'm going to send a support ticket in. You don't need to send a support ticket. The answer is solved. If you downloaded the product, you have the templates. You just need to find them. So that led to the next thing. And the next thing was I created this video. I put the video into in the group. And this actually helped to demonstrate some of the questions that had come up about positioning and why MOCKUPS when there were other mock-up programs in the marketplace, what's unique about MOCKUPS. And I think so I addressed all that in this brief 3-minute video, but that led to a question because I made the comment in that video that I use MOCKUPS every day. And the truth is I do. I use MOCKUPS every day. And so someone asked me, what do you use MOCKUPS for? And I think that's a great question. How many of you have had that question? What would I use a mock-up for? I think that even came up a couple of times in the chat last week when we introduced the product. So how many of you have had a question, why would I ever use mock-up? I remember the first time I saw one, I went, why would I use that? And it took me about 30 seconds to answer that question. So have any of you had that same question? Just, yeah, why would you use a mock-up? What would you use a mock-up for? And why would you use it every day? And so I created an image to help the individual who had asked that question. And I wanted to share it with you today because I think it makes good sense. Excuse me. Remember, marketing has a purpose. Marketing is to get you can't sell anything, you can't communicate anything till you have the person's attention. And attention is the key. Getting someone's attention is the essence of marketing. Once I have your attention, then I can communicate to you. But I can talk myself blue in the face, and if I don't have your attention, that's the reason why I'm always asking you to respond, and because I want to know if I have your attention. This is all about the other person's attention, and so we have a battle for attention. And so if I'm going to use this, if I'm talking about logos, I grabbed this picture. We did this. This was in the webinar a couple of weeks ago. I grabbed this image right here. I Googled best top logo designs. And if I use that, if I'm writing an article on logo design, and I post this picture as it appears in the upper left-hand corner, are y'all with me? Because nobody's responding right now. You got to tell me if you're with me. If I post this picture in my article, then I run the risk of losing attention rather than getting it. Because inevitably what will happen is that people will start to look at that and go, who's A&A? Or, I thought Kohl's was in trouble. And immediately the attention gets diverted to the image rather than the point of my article. Does that make sense to everyone? I mean, we have this battle for attention. And I want to hold people's attention. And so sometimes the mock-up is the best way to hold their attention and make my point at the same time. By putting this image in the upper right left-hand corner here, by taking that image and putting it in a mock-up, I divert the attention away from looking at each individual logo, and I put it into something that looks at the frustration of all the logos available. Does that make sense to everybody? That's the reason why you use mock-ups, to help you to hold attention, to keep it where it belongs rather than diverting it away. Designs have a purpose, and the purpose is to get people's attention. But I want to make sure that the attention goes in a direction that benefits me. I'm always telling you to begin with the end in mind. If I look at this, then what's going to happen, this upper left-hand corner, if I look at this, then what's going to happen is I'm going to recognize that people are going to start to think about the logos rather than the point I'm trying to make. You're right, Gene. I don't have to do watermarking or adding proof to the image as much as I would under other circumstances, unless I'm offering that to a client as a mock-up. But I'm trying to hold the person's attention, and I want to keep it in the place where it belongs. Mock-ups are excellent for that. I'm going to show you a couple of other things that I did with it as well. But here are 3 questions that came up immediately last week. I'm going to address them here. And we've already talked about one of them, but I think this is important for you to remember this. Somebody asked me, well, why can't you save your work? It's because a mock-up's it's not an editor. It's not a design tool. You can't save your work and you can't edit it. You're not going to be able to add text and those kinds of things to it. Do that in your design software. Do that in YOUZIGN. Make sure that you do those things there, and then you pull this in. This is a one and done. I'm using this mock-up for this time. This is not a design I'm going to save forever and ever. It's a design I'm going to use for that one time and move on. And so you have to remember, what's the point? And this is really important when you're asking some of these questions. And then what if I want a transparent background? Several people asked that question last Friday. And within minutes, several people had demonstrated you don't need to worry about a transparent background. We have a great background removal tool. Would you all agree we have a great background removal tool in YOUZIGN? And so it gives you gives you the ability to create transparent backgrounds. Makes that happen very quickly. Okay. Excuse me. All right. Hey, Tyree, good to see you, man. All right. We're going to talk about some things that are coming up and things that are new today. All right. It was a couple of days ago. Rose posted this in the group that the desktop version of YOUZIGN is very close to being ready for beta. We've identified some people who are going to do some detailed testing on that right now, and before it's released, Bertrand did a nice little video showing the capabilities of that, and I think you'll find this to be very helpful. Lots of people have questioned, well, why were we doing a desktop version? And the reason is very simple. It gives you another tool. We cloud-based programs are all dependent upon server speed and server functionality and all of that. If you have something on your desktop and you can use it from your desktop, then you're not down regardless of what happens. And that's, I don't know how important that is to you, but it's important to me. And so I think you're going to be pleased with this. I think you're going to like it. I'm going to show you just a couple of things about it today, but I want you to see something I thought was pretty cool here. This is the desktop version of yes, Susanna, we can work on planes and trains. That is good. That is good. I will tell you this: while if you want to use the integration partners like Pixabay and others, you will have to be connected to the to the internet to load those things. Okay. But check this out. I just did a screenshot of my screen here, but look down here at the bottom. I got LogoZine, I got GIFZine, I got MOCKUP, I've got YOUZIGN, all in my program tray here, and I can switch back and forth between programs. I'm not dependent upon my computer connections. I'm not dependent upon my internet speed. I've got everything that I need right there. Now, there's some limitations with that, and understand that, but we're working through those, and you'll get up to speed on that soon. Okay? Are there any questions about that? I need you to respond to my questions. That gives me an opportunity to take a drink and alleviate my throat here just a little bit. Okay. All right, cool. I'm glad y'all understand that and where we're trying to go with that. I think you'll find this to be extremely helpful in your suite of products available from the YOUZIGN team. No, I'm just using my internal mic today, Gene. But it has me hovered over my computer trying to make sure that we're good. Bob, I have no clue. I don't know. I know that they all work and it works fine. Okay. I want to tell you a little bit about the new mockups that are in MOCKUP today. For some reason, there's a lot of confusion about this, and Jonte just mentioned that he was able to get that clear. If you have MOCKUP 0.0.6, then you have all the mockups that are available. It's not that you missed out or anything. Make sure you download the current version. If you have the current version, underneath this tab right here, you will find all of the mockups that are available right now. okay? And we'll have to deliver those as updates as of right now, all right? But these are different look than what you got last week. And last week was screenshots, phone shots, that kind of thing. This is a very different direction. And so I wanted you to see where those mock-ups are going, okay? But you'll find all of those underneath this tab right here. Yes, you have to update. You have to update. And you'll know which version you're running because right up here at the top, right in the middle, it will give you your version, all right? I think they're nice looking designs. Now, that led me to something. Yesterday, recovering from my trip from the hospital, I was doing some research on hemp. And I've been working in that industry for about 17 years now. No, it's closer to 21 years now. And I found this plate, this copper etched plate, this colorized copper etched plate. No, I understand that, Bob, but believe me, that's the reason why it's beta. Okay. And that will get taken care of, Bob, but there's a reason why it's beta. And so you kind of got to work through some of those little, this would be a better way to do this, okay? Go to your download page that when you got the original product and click on download. No, there is no cloud version. All right, let me show you something. I think this is kind of cool. I want you to see this, all right? This is the new designs, and I had been working on this. I found this plate, this copper etched plate, colorized copper etched plate from 1788. Beautiful picture, beautiful picture. And so I thought it would be cool to use it in the new mock-up designs. And I think it made an amazing look. Now, I usually think about this in terms of how can I use this for software kind of stuff? How do I use this to communicate from other things? But what an amazing look that is. Do y'all like that picture? I mean, I thought that worked very, very well inside of MOCKUPS. And it works very well with the new images that we have in MOCKUPS. And so when you're looking for ways to source stuff, don't forget to go back to some of these old, this was done in 1788. Beautiful hand-drawn picture. And I thought, what an amazing image to use in the article that I'm writing. And so a little bit of old school combined with something that's very new school, okay? All right, I'm going to get to the canvas here in just a few minutes, and a couple things we're going to talk about. One thing that has come up recently, it was an issue about 18 months ago, and seems like it might be a bit of an issue now, and that is don't forget the smart lines toggle. If you're having issues with things hiccuping while you're on the canvas, turn the smart lines off and see if that helps. Just a reminder to do that. I think we made a big emphasis on that about 18 months ago, and the problem went away. And now it seems like a few people are encountering that. And so just a reminder that if you, for some reason, something doesn't drag properly or it doesn't expand properly or whatever, turn those smart line toggle off. All right, it changes colors when you do that. Are people hearing me okay? I'm getting a notice here that, all right. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't want anybody to miss. All right, good. But remember the smart line toggle. It's something that we introduced about 18 months ago. And I just want to make sure that if you're having an issue, try that. It might solve the problem. Okay. And then last week, the question came up about layering images. And so I wanted to take some time today and talk about that because layering images is something that makes things look really cool. Okay, hold on a second. Yes, I shut the sound off then. All right, I'm back. But we want to talk about layering images so that you can do some pretty cool things, okay? And there's a couple of things that you want to make sure that you do when you do that. And we'll talk about shadows, and we'll talk about directionality, and we'll talk about perspective and those kinds of things, okay? When we get to the canvas. Are there any questions so far? All right, good. So Willie, give us a little feedback. Is this helping you? Remember, we always begin with the end in mind. Always, always. And that is going to be true regardless of what we do. I just have to remind, I felt like I've needed to remind you of that often. When we go back to the talking about the battle for attention, then I want to make sure in that battle for attention that I understand that attention is my end goal. It's my, thank you, Gene. I really do appreciate that too, by the way. But attention is my end goal. And I want to start with that in mind. And sometimes because I start with that in mind, I'm going to use a mock-up and I'm going to design my design so that it works well in a mock-up. Okay, kind of like the one that you see right here. I exaggerated the size of this text because it looked better in the mock-up. Begin with the end in mind. Always do that so that you accomplish your goal. The goal is not to have a beautiful design. The goal is to make a sale. The goal is to get attention. The goal is to communicate something. Those are the goals. Always begin with the end in mind. We talked about that when we did Facebook ads, that we wanted to begin with the end in mind so that we don't have text just floating out there in the middle of the Facebook world. All right. I'll give you a couple of tips as we wrap up, and then any questions that I may have missed, I will do my best to try to answer those at the end of the webinar. And with that said, let's move on to the canvas. Okay, give me a second to make that switch, and I will be with you in just a second. Yes, Debbie, I will try to do that at the end, okay? All right, good. Thank you all for sticking with me through that. Make sure I'm on the right screen here. All right. We're going to go back out to the dashboard first. And I'm going to look underneath templates. See if I can answer this question about templates. Right here. And don't get really excited because all these are 5 images that have been dropped in here right now, kind of as a placeholder. So yeah, that's exactly what Gene's saying, Bob, is that all these really are, they really don't, it's not like there's some magical template that you have here that you can take and design. There's nothing on these. They're just 5 images, and the 5 images are all the same size. It's just simply showing you the size of the placeholder, okay? So you're not missing anything at this point in time, okay? So, but if I were to take one of those, I can take one of these in, and now that's all I have. So I would have to add text to it. and do a couple of things with it if I wanted to use it for something. So it's just right now, it's just simply an image. Okay. That's all that that's so you're not missing out on anything. You can get the image anywhere and pull in there, but it does help you to see what size that is. And here you'll notice it's 1920 by 1080. That's your starting point for your designs. 1920 by 1080 in the portrait size. If you want to go, I'm sorry, in the landscape size. If you want to go to the portrait size like you're using it on a phone, then you switch those around and they go the other way. And you'll notice here that it's actually been done in the other direction for the phone. Okay. All right, we're going to get back to what I wanted to talk about originally, and that was, but I think that answers your question, Bob. Yeah, Charlotte, all I really did in that was I found the print of the plant, all right? I found that 1788 print of the plant, and I took the print of the plant just exactly like it was and dropped it in MOCKUPS. And I found a place where it looked best without doing anything to it at all. And it fit well and looked good, and I stuck with that. So that's what I did to create that. All right, let's talk about images here for a minute. I'm gonna switch this to a Facebook ad size. And I'm going to put a background on this just so that we have something here. If I just have a plain, if I have a plain white background, it may be that it has to do with whether you're a member of the Templar Club or not, Bob. That's the only difference. There's not different versions of the program. There's different features that people have, like the Templar Club. Dion, are you on? If you look here, Dion, I think I can answer your question for you. All right. These have been changed to their proper proportionality now. Okay. Something weird happened with something weird happened in the last when they added MOCKUPS here. For some reason, it weirded out the dimensions, and so that's what happened, Dion. They should be back to their proper sizes now. Okay. All right, let's take a look at. I had a book cover. All right, this was a book cover that I had. And the question was asked, how do you layer those books like they look like a stack? Now, something to keep in mind when you do this. So I'm going to take you through this. I'm going to give you several pieces to this puzzle. I'm going to get this down here so I can grab my hooks, okay? Now, this image was created to lay in this direction. Watch what happens when I rotate this. My point of view changes drastically and it doesn't look right. It just doesn't look right, correct? Hang on, Pete. A whole bunch of things involved before you duplicate it. And that's what I want to talk about. Because if you start with this, here, okay, in its proper direction, you start with it here, and you duplicate on top of it, here's the mistake that people make. If you duplicate on top of it, then what happens is that typically you want to fan these out. And if you're going to fan them out, you want to do this. All right. Now you're changing the direction here. So what I want to do is I want to start at the bottom and fan them out. And that's the reason why I talk about not duplicating this first, but the first thing I want to do is I want to begin with the end in mind. All right. And in order to make this look right, I'm going to start out like this, because the only part that's going to be visible is this corner up here. Now, the other thing is I want to figure out which direction my light's coming from. Don't know the answer to that yet, Jonte. I would love it if that were true. Now, I can tell you this, we're going to add them in mock design. I know that, but I really would, I understand what you're asking. You're asking if we'll have more options in the preview here. And the answer is I don't know that yet. I would love it if there was, though. Excuse me. So I'm going to take this image right here, and I'm going to make sure that what I do with this is that I skew this so that I get my end result in mind. All right. Does everybody understand why I'm doing that? It's very, very important. Because if I do it to the top image, it looks funky. All right. But if I do it to the bottom image, now the other thing I want to do is that I don't want to put my shadow just on the top image. So I want to start thinking about which direction is my light going to come from, and how am I going to shadow this so that it looks proper in the layers that I'm going to add on top of it. Okay, so I'm going to add a shadow now, and that shadow is coming to the lower right-hand corner. And I want to figure out, do I need to have a good distance to that, or do I need to, what do I need to do with it? And we're going to play with this because this is important to make this look right. Okay. Now I've got my shadow here, make it a little bit darker so that it's easy for y'all to see that. Can you see the shadow that I'm adding to this? I want to make sure that that's very visible to you. I have to sometimes exaggerate things a little bit so that they're easy to see. So I'm going to exaggerate this just a little bit more so you can see that. And now the next one I'm going to do, I'm going to duplicate this. And I'm going to start to rotate this just a little bit. All right. That's what I did, Tony. I did skew it to the left. Not sure you understand that. That's to the left. So now let's figure out how many books am I going to put in this stack, because that's really important too. All right. Now, do I need to do anything different with this shadow? No, I don't understand, Tony. You're going to have to explain to me, because I did rotate it. The lower, that's the bottom book, and I've rotated it to the left. And then you duplicate again. So the question that you ask yourself each time, do I need to do something with the shadows? All right. My shadows staying where I want them to be. Now, thing to keep in mind is that this is now higher from the tabletop. So because it's higher from the tabletop, I might want to work on the shadow. Does that make sense? I'm going to distance my shadow out a little bit more. Now, one more time, and I'll have a stack of 4 books. Now, this is going to be really close to its original position. All right. but I want to add a little bit. I want to add a little bit. Susanna, I think you were the one who asked the question too, weren't you? And I want to add a little bit more to my shadow here. Because again, I'm getting a little further away. No, last Friday. I think, Susanna, you asked this question last Friday, and that was the reason why I wanted to make sure we addressed it today. Now, I want to show you something. I have a hard time designing on a white background. It's just difficult for me. But I want you to see something here. I have to layer them on top of each other because I can't turn the one on the bottom. I can't reach it. I can get here and I can play with it here. But see what happens? I'm trying to give you the proper order to do this in. Okay? Now, I want to show you something. I've got this top image is skewed just a little bit. Now watch what I'm going to do. I've got to get rid of the background here because right now the background's in my way. So I'm going to delete the background. I'm going to grab this. Now I've got all 4 images together. All right. With all 4 images together. And now I have that top book in its original direction. Okay. And I can throw this over here and you can see we've got the same direction going as we had before. And that's the reason why you start with the bottom and you skew each book on the bottom. Then if you're off just a little bit when you get to the top of your stack, you group them together like I did here, okay? I grouped those all together. Pulled off of here and I have them as a group. And I can change this so that my angle is proper. All right? Now, that's a little bit of work. But it's supposed to be a little bit of work, all right? And I want you to understand how important the shadows are because the shadows what makes it look realistic. And I have to build the shadows from the bottom up. I have to build the skew from the bottom up because it's easier to deal with it there. So that's the look that I'm trying to accomplish. Now, I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to grab my background image again. And I'm going to add that in. And now it looks awesome. Okay? No, it does not stay that way. Once I click off of it, the grouping goes away. Okay? Now I could save that as a group, but the grouping goes away after that. Now, very, very important that you begin with the end in mind. I know where I want that top book to be. And I've got to maintain the angle perspective so that it works. Because if I don't do that, then what ends up happening is it looks really weird. All right? Are y'all with me? This was such, when the question came up last week, I went, people are going to get this, but it takes a little while to develop it because you've got to build those layers and use your shadows to develop the look that you're after. All right. So did you find that helpful? Yes, by grabbing them as a group. Okay. By doing what I did here, and that is just starting over here and grabbing them as a group. And I've got my little group button is turned on up here, so I now know I'm functioning with them as a group. I can make my final adjustment with that so that my end result is close to or is the same angle as my original. Okay. This is I probably get asked privately this question as much as anything else. How do I make a realistic looking stack? And there's some steps involved in it, and it involves understanding the angles and perspective, and you know, that point of view perspective that you learned early in art class. You got to understand that. And you've got to, you know, kind of work with the shadows and play with the shadows. I had to exaggerate it a little bit here so that you could see it. And keep this in mind, that one of the things that happens is that when you add color to the background, the shadows change, okay? And you want to make sure that you keep those so that they make good sense. But start at the bottom, work your way to the top of the stack. Which is exactly the way you would do it if you were drawing it. All right, there was an earlier question that I said I would try to answer. Oh, I know what it was the background tool. So this is what I'm going to do. Stick with me for just a minute. I'm going to pull up the YOUZIGN desktop. Okay. And let me switch if I can switch screens, I'll be good. Because I wanted to take just a moment today and let you take a look at the desktop version. So you should see launch YOUZIGN here. First thing I want you to notice is it's incredibly fast. All right. Get things positioned here so I can see you and you can see me. Hello, Ivor. Good to see you, man. All right. Over here, under integrations, I'm just going to grab an image. Take this image, and this is exactly the way it works, regardless of whether you're using the desktop or the cloud version, okay? This is exactly how this works. This is your desktop removal tool right here. But I like this because this is so lightning fast. I'm gonna identify all the colors in here that I want to save. Okay. And I should sufficiently have that. Let's see here. I don't know if anybody else is annoyed by that instruction that keeps popping up, but it does. By the way, that's, you don't have anything to do with that. That's their platform, not ours. Okay, now I have removed the background from this tool, or from this image. All right, I've removed the background from it. Now I have some options. Okay, there we go. Now can you see that? Excuse me. I have no idea what went wrong. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, this is kind of a cool little image here. So if I want to remove the background on this background removal tool in the desktop version is lightning fast. All right. Simply, and keep in mind, what you're doing is you're telling a computer that sees numbers. You're telling them which colored numbers you want to keep and which ones you want to get rid of. Okay. Now, this one's a little more complex, but what you're looking for is you want to keep the colors that carried away there. You want to keep the colors that remain in the image that you're looking for. Okay. And then you just simply use the red tool to mark the stuff that needs to be removed. All right. And in this case, I'm going to remove all of this down here below and just leave that like that. All right. But in the background removal, yes, there is a blur tool, and the blur tool is, actually, let me just save this and I'll show you. I'm going to save that image just like that. Now I'm going to put a background on it so you can see the image. But if I take a vector image here, all right, like this. If I take a vector image like this and I go over here to the little wand for my special effects, right here you'll see the blur tool, okay? And I can make my blur like that, okay? Does that help, Abigail? If the color is both in your image and in the background, and that happens a lot, the color's both in your image and your background, then there are two options that you have. And I'll show you what they are. Hang on a second. Let me grab another image. I'll pull that into there because with this we are done. But I do want to answer that question because here's a good example of the very thing you're talking about. Yes, I lost the screen again. I realize what's kicking me out, and I won't make that same mistake again. But I'm not going to try to load back up because with that, we're done with the webinar. So thank you so much for your attention. I appreciate your kindness today and giving me an opportunity to work through this. And I'll be better next week. Voice will be back to its normal stuff. And so I'm looking forward to that. Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all coming in. I appreciate your time and your well wishes. Y'all are good. You're good folks. Look forward to seeing you next Friday, same time.